Good evening, I'm Ces Oreña-Drilon.
I'm Pauline Verzosa.
And I'm Shawn Yao.
The big stories tonight. Senator Ronald De La Rosa has left the building, the Senate building that is. The chamber's new leadership does not see any point in restricting Bato's movements despite an ICC arrest warrant against him.
Meantime, there are still many unanswered questions about last night's shooting at the upper chamber. And this one is persistent. Was it just a ruse to help Senator Bato get out of the Senate?
And amid the distractions, the Senate says it will convene as an impeachment court for the trial of Vice President Sara Duterte. They are looking to do so by Monday, May 18.
Kinonfirm ng Sergeant at Arms that he's no longer in the building. I'm waiting for the complete incident report. Anong oras umalis?
Huwag po tayong papayag na another Pilipino ay dadalhin sa dahig. Pangalawa, kay Pangulong Duterte.
His appearance at the Senate on Monday was as sudden as his disappearance today. Senator Bato De La Rosa left the upper chambers building in the wee hours of the morning of Thursday, and the lawmaker is still dodging an ICC arrest warrant that could bring him to The Hague, where his former boss is. Mobile journalist Arles de los Santos with tonight's big story.
It all began with two alleged thieves late Wednesday afternoon, May 13. First, Senator Bato De La Rosa's appeal before the Supreme Court for a temporary restraining order on his ICC arrest warrant had been denied. Second, NBI agents are on their way to the Senate to arrest the former Duterte PNP chief. This report circulated just as the Senate was in session. De La Rosa was even seen in plenary. During one session break, De La Rosa went live on Facebook and claimed to have received information of his impending arrest. He asked supporters to help protect him.
Ako po'y nananawagan sa inyo. Sana tulungan niyo ako. Huwag po tayong papayag na another Pilipino ay dadalhin sa dahig. Pangalawa, kay Pangulong Duterte. Ako po'y nananawagan sa inyo na sana pumunta kayo dito, tulungan niyo kami, mag-vigil tayo dito sa harapan ng Senado.
That was the last time anyone heard from Senator Bato. After 7 in the evening, several gunshots rang out from the second floor of the Senate building. But before the chaos unfolded, cameras caught De La Rosa walking hurriedly to the elevators. The Senate building's steel doors were rolled down and the upper chamber was placed on lockdown. In another part of the building, senators from the newly installed majority bloc were in a meeting. The Senate president went live on Facebook to assure everyone that they're safe.
Kung sino nakikinig from the government, this is the Senate of the Philippines. We are allegedly under attack. Kung sinong nanonood, sinong nakikinig, we expect yung tawagan namin would understand the emotions here and will say we'll do something about it.
When the situation calmed, two questions were raised. What exactly happened? And where is Senator Bato? It is not only until Thursday afternoon when it was confirmed De La Rosa is no longer inside the Senate complex.
Kinonfirm ng Sergeant at Arms that he's no longer in the building. I'm waiting for the complete incident report. Anong oras umalis?
But again, more questions. When did Bato leave? Was it during the shooting? De La Rosa's lawyer Israelito Torion debunked speculations that Wednesday night's chaos was a ruse to help his client escape, and even showed a photo taken with the senator a few minutes past 12 midnight of Thursday.
Ito ba siya? Ito ba siya? Hindi, nandyan siya. Hanggang ngayon, pinakita ko nga sa inyo eh. Oo. Ito yung sa scene. He will be there because he has never left the Senate premises all along. Kasi fake news yung mga diversion, di po totoo yan.
A report from the Office of the Senate Sergeant at Arms said Bato left with Senator Robin Padilla at around 2:30 a.m. The OSA said there was nothing illegal with that. Cayetano stressed De La Rosa leaving the Senate premises was his own decision, citing a message from his wife Nancy.
I'd also like to ask for forgiveness for all the confusion and havoc it has created in the Senate. It is for this reason I am sure that Ronald made his, in quotation mark, escape. He told me habang tumatagal kasi siya dyan sa loob ay mas nadadamay pa kayo. Wala sa plano, but knowing him, I am sure he took the opportunity nung nagkaguluhan at nagkaputukan na.
For now, it seems no one knows where De La Rosa is. His lawyers have since invoked confidentiality, the attorney-client privilege, their lips sealed as to his whereabouts. De La Rosa is now wanted by the International Criminal Court and has a warrant for alleged crimes against humanity during the Duterte drug war. The Marcos administration, at least for now, is standing back and has no clear move to enforce Bato's arrest. The Justice Department is inclined to wait for the Supreme Court's decision on De La Rosa's TRO appeal. The Interior Department is taking its cue from the Interpol before effecting the arrest. And as the hours tick away, Bato is getting far away from those who want him caught. He managed to hide for 6 months before suddenly appearing at the Senate last Monday, only to slip away again. Kapatid Arles de los Santos, we are One News.
Now, meantime, Malacanang explains the presence of National Bureau of Investigation agents near the Senate complex, and it was not to arrest Senator Bato de la Rosa. In a palace briefing earlier today, NBI Director Melvin Matibag confirmed his personnel were at the GSIS building, which is adjacent to the Senate building. The GSIS management asked for the NBI's assistance in securing the building. The atmosphere inside the building had become tense since De La Rosa's sudden appearance at the upper chamber.
Well, yung request po kasi sa amin na sulat na aking natanggap ng alas 5:08 p.m. po kahapon mula po kay GM Vic Veloso is to secure and panatilihin po yung kapayapaan and peace and order. So pag may request pong ganun, talaga pong nakabihis naman po ng ano tawag dito, yung pong kanilang ordinary gear na ganyan, dala po talaga yung mga ganyan na arms. Ano po. Ang nagdi-drill po, tinatanggal po nila yung lock because the access from the Senate going to GSIS, yung susi po, ang report po sa akin ni GM Veloso is nandoon po sa Senate. Ang gusto po niya, isara po yung lugar na yon kasi nga po, labas-masok na raw po ang iba't ibang tao. Hindi na po masecure yung lugar at yung mga employee.
Matibag also revealed that in fact there was even an order from President Bongbong Marcos for the NBI to stand down. That's following a ruling from the Supreme Court directing government officials to reply to De La Rosa's motion seeking to stop his arrest. The SC did not issue a temporary restraining order on Bato's ICC warrant, but did allow comment on the petition. Now, as to the commotion that ensued at the Senate Wednesday night, Palace Press Officer Claire Castro said it was not the NBI agents who fired first.
Pagdating sa bridge sa GSIS premises, tinanong ng usaa ang NBI agent na nakaupo, lamang kasama nga ang isang blue guard ng GSIS. Nagpakilala na NBI agents at nung nagsabi sila ng kanilang pagkakakilanlan, agad nagpaputok ng warning shot si Sergeant at Arms Mau Aplaska. At dahil doon, napilitan ding magpaputok ng warning shot ang NBI agent. Walang assault na ginawa ang NBI agents sa Senado. At pangalawa, walang operasyon ang NBI o PNP na arestuhin si Senator Bato.
Meanwhile, Philippine National Police Chief General Jose Melencio Nartates Jr. said that they are now investigating if the Senate shooting was staged. There are allegations the chaos was a distraction to allow the escape of De La Rosa from the Senate building. For its part, the NBI says it will continue to determine the current whereabouts of the senator. Bureau Director Matibag, however, deferred further inquiries about De La Rosa's whereabouts to the Senate.
There's just a lot on the Senate's plate at the moment. Let's get insights from a former senator, Richard Dick Gordon. Welcome to the Big Story, sir.
Yes. Good evening, Chair. As well, and to all your reviewers.
What do you have to say about the chaos that you're seeing at the Senate?
I'm really dumbfounded. I really feel that we're like the gang that can't shoot straight. It embarrasses our country that we cannot enforce the rule of law, that we cannot even enforce an arrest order. It's a legitimate arrest order. It's part of our laws. And I don't know why we allow this, because this largely contributes to the diminution of trust and confidence in the government. We are seen as a government that cannot work and cannot enforce its law. And it must be asked, who would benefit from his escape? Diba? And what is a motive for that? Apparently, this guy had escaped arrest for 6 months. It was a cost celeb in the sense that he was growing salary for 6 months. And then all of a sudden, because there was going to be an impeachment, a vote in the Senate prior to on the eve of impeachment, he suddenly appears so that he can help replace the majority party at the time. So a lot of questions are there, and the answers are almost obvious to everybody.
What is obvious to you?
Obvious, the impeachment is not going to push through because Bato has escaped. Obvious that there is connivance, I think, on the part of certain people in the Senate. They even made him they gave him special treatment. And then while they were in his custody, he escapes after what you call diversionary tactic. And you would imagine that the government and the Sergeant of Arms, if he had that, would have guarded against entry and exit through the fire escapes. Di ba? Dapat may gwardiya yun. Walang gwardiya, doon raw tumakas. Or for that matter, dapat yung mga taong humuhuli sa kanya, di umano, dapat tinaligiran na yung Senado. Paano naman nakatakas siya ng gano'n? Meron mo yung sasabi, itinakas sa isang kapwa senador. That is obstruction of justice. So, because this guy has a warrant and he's preventing the government from executing that warrant.
Does the majority have a lot to answer for, the majority in the Senate?
I believe it does. Because they were very, very excited. They were very, very aggressive. They were all trying to protect Bato. There was a lot of drama that went through it. He went through and allegedly he was being chased. And then when he got through, practically held the whole country in awe because he was shouting and telling everybody that hinahabol siya, nakipag-wrestling siya, when in truth and in fact, nadapa siya. And then all of a sudden, Senator Marcoleta says he's under the protection of the Senate. Protection from what? Bakit pinapayagan nila na makalabas kang wala man lang gwardiya na nakakita na lumabas siya o hindi pinara? So obviously, the Senate has a lot to answer for it.
For Senate President Alan Peter Cayetano to say that the Senate is under attack, he went on a Facebook Live last night when the situation was still unclear. Was that too early to make a statement in that way, as if they were being besieged?
Well, there were a lot of unusual statements. For example, they said NBI. Later on, it became perceived NBI. Pagkatapos under attack.
Allegedly. May allegedly. The lawyer in him, I guess.
Under attack, no? And yet, it would be easy to find out because the only people there are the USAA who had arms, and all those arms are controlled by the PNP. And they could check kung sino nag-fire ng baril, and then they can check bakit pinutukan at sino pinuputukan. And when they do that, then you start unraveling what happened.
If you were in the minority, what would you do come Monday when the Senate holds its plenary?
Well, the Senate is a deliberative body. Its weapons are speeches and positions. No? The minority should come out with a strong position because it is on the eve or the actual date of the impeachment, because apparently I'm told the articles of impeachment has been delivered. And obviously, this is a complete distraction on the people's need to focus on what is happening so they can understand the process of impeachment. And certainly, when these things happen, distracted ang tao, tuloy yan, bago nangyari, ang daming distractions, di ba? Kaya biglang dumating si Bato. Kaya magsusuntukan allegedly si Kiko Pangilinan at saka si Robin Padilla. Ang daming noises. And obviously, a lot of the principal noise was when they allegedly had that attack and that shooting incident on the 6th. How can that happen? You know, you have so many policemen outside. You have so many USAAs who are, doing overtime work. And how can he escape very, very quietly, walk to a car, and go out where there are no guards at the garage of the Senate? Were there no guards in the fire exits or in the stairways? Hindi ko maintindihan paano makakatakas siya. So there's a lot to be explained by the Sergeant of Arms, who, by the way, as you know, is a classmate of Bato. So obviously, hindi mo maalis na ma-diminish rin yung trust and confidence ng tao sa Senado kung paano nangyari makatakas ang si Bato dyan. And remember, it's not a simple offense. Bato is being accused of killing a lot of Filipinos, being behind the killing of many Filipinos, like President Duterte. And we shouldn't just focus on escape. We should focus on rearresting him because it's important that we have closure on all these crimes that were perpetrated.
All right, Senator, I wanted to get your thoughts. No, we have discussed already the shortcomings of the Senate, but what about the national government? Should they have not stepped up earlier also? I mean, I know they entered into a deal on Monday night to not arrest the senator just yet, but based on your assessment, what are the shortcomings of the national government?
At this point, I'm not looking for shortcomings, but if you ask me shortcomings, well, they took the word of the Senate that he was under protective custody. Why should they do that? I mean, after all, they've been trying to get Bato for the last so many months, no? And ang shortcoming din ng gobyerno is ayaw lang makita na talagang pinapahirapan si Bato because ang strategy ni Bato is humihingi ng awa, humihingi ng tulong sa mga mamamayan dahil inaapi siya. Eh, ba't siya nagtatago? Ba't hindi niya dinala at humarap siya doon sa Senado? Sabi nga rin lamang, I cannot be arrested, but he could have spoken there instead of hiding, drawing his salary for 6 months. And, ano nangyari tuloy ngayon, lalong lumaki ang sunog. Because now, he is not only seen as escaping the first 6 months, he is now eluding arrest because of this second incident.
If I may interject, Senator, sinasabi ni Senate President Alan Peter Cayetano that a local court has to first issue the warrant. Is that a sound legal point of view?
I don't think so, because I authored the law on international humanitarian law, domestic law, and that law is very clear. No, it says that under Section 17, in the interest of justice, the relevant Philippine authorities may dispense with the investigation or prosecution of a crime punishable under the act if another court or international tribunal is already conducting the investigation or undertaking the prosecution of such crime. Instead, the authorities may surrender or extradite suspected or accused persons in the Philippines to the appropriate international court, if any, or to another state pursuant to the applicable extradition laws and treaties. That's why you have many, many other heads of state that were captured. Si Pinochet, the dictator of Chile, was captured in London in the early 90s, if I'm not mistaken. So many other African leaders were captured during those times. So, una-una, ICC is there to prevent immunity. It's not really interested in interfering in the Philippines. What is interested is if the government cannot seem to prosecute because sinasabi ng karamihan dito, nakakausap ang korte rito, which I really challenge. No? Pero yun ang kaya gusto nila dito dahil na-appoint yan, may connection yan, somehow baka they might get a friendlier court here than there.
No, and also, of course, Senator, the victims...
It's already legal. Ayun na yan, court.
Hindi, at saka yung biktima, madaling takutin dito.
That's also right, no? And besides, even in the Constitution, the Philippines, adheres to international law and deems it part of the law of the land. So talagang kasama yan.
Pero do you think, Senator, hindi ba dapat kasuhan din siya dito? Because a lot are saying na parang the reason daw kung bakit ayaw siya kasuhan dito ay para kunin na lang siya ng ICC.
That has been my view from the very beginning because I ordered that law. Kung di siya makasuhan, pwede kasuhan sila under that law, Republic Act 8991. No? I'm sorry, 1951. Because doon walang prescription yan eh. Pero the ICC is already taken notice. Isang tinatanong ko palagi, bakit sino ba ang nagpaalis sa atin sa ICC? Hindi tayo pinaalis. Ang nagpaalis ay yung ngayon ay nasasakdal na presidente natin, siya nagpaalis because he anticipated that one of these days, the long arm of the law will catch out after him like other international criminals. So inalis niyan. So yun ang motive. Ganun rin ngayon. Ang motive ni Bato is ayun doon dahil sigurado tutuloy yung proseso, malinaw na malinaw, at natatakot siya na doon hindi siya makakalusot.
So, Senator, what would your advice be for Senator Bato de la Rosa now that he has already escaped the Senate premises? He's also appealing to the PNP for custody, for them to keep him in custody. Would you suggest that he just surrender himself to the ICC to stop further tarnishing the reputation of the Senate?
He's supposed to be an officer and a gentleman. PMA graduate. Yung classmate niya, PMA. Nakataka siya under the custody of the PMA guy. Si Mao something, no? And then, I would suggest, kung tunay siyang lalaki, harapin niya. Because marami naman nakakalusot doon sa ICC. Si Mao Aplas, kaklase niya, kung susuko siya, sasabihin niya, baka it might be counted in his favor. But I can tell you, there are many, many cases where criminals like him or alleged criminals like him, like Laurent Gbagbo of President of Cote d'Ivoire, this case was dismissed. Jean-Pierre Bemba, former Vice President of Congo, originally convicted in 2016, and the conviction was overturned on appeal in June 2018. William Ruto, President of Kenya, Uhuru Kenyatta, former President of Kenya, they were both acquitted, no? And Matthew Gunjolo Chui, former Congolese militia leader, acquitted in December 2012 of war crimes and crimes against humanity. If he thinks that he did not do these crimes, then pwede niya ilaban yan at madidismiss yung kaso niya kung siya talagang hindi guilty. Pero ang tingin ko, alam niya nga, may kasalanan siya. Hindi naman mangyayari yan kung di inutos ng Presidente Duterte yan. Hindi mangyayari yan kung wala yung PNP. At nakita natin, ang mga tao, biktima, ay talagang nagpipigati na gusto lang nila magkaroon ng katarungan sa kanila. At hindi na ako sariniwala dito dahil pagka dito, maaabot ng mga siga sa gobyerno na pwede lang dismiss yung kaso. And that's why I think ICC is the best way to handle it. If we can do it here, okay, fine. Hindi ako aangal doon because talaga naman may law tayo dyan eh. Tayo nga lang ang batas na gobyerno na may nire-recognize yung ICC as the venue for international humanitarian law crimes at meron pa tayo ng domestic law. So, in fact, yung law natin, pwede natin pasukan yung mga ibang bansa under the universal doctrine na kahit saan ka, pwede kang hulihin at pwede kang husgahan dito sa Pilipinas. Pwede try dito sa Pilipinas yan.
Senator, nung panahon nyo ba, were you familiar with passageways between the GSIS and the Senate? Did your staff use any of those entrances or exits?
I'm aware that there are pass-throughs, no? That goes outside the corridors of the Senate. But be that as it may, even so, ang pinagtatakang ko, una, ang may hawak sa kanya, yung kaklase niya. Pangalawa, paano napayagan makalusot doon kung lulusot? Pangatlo, may sinasabi ang kabilang estasyon na sumakay sila sa fire exit, nakababa sila sa garahe, sumakay doon sa kotse, na SUV, nakalabas, at pinaspasan na. May kasama pa sa isang senador. That is why it is so important para makita ng buong mundo at para sa ating konsyensya na pwede nating maasahan pa ang ating law enforcement kung ito ay maimbestiga kaagad sa lalong madaling panahon. I think in 2 days you can finish the investigation.
Ang sagot po ni General Aplaska, hindi naman mapigilan si Senator Bato kung gusto niyang umalis. Is that
Hindi nga 6 months, yun ang aangal ko nga eh. Pagka uniformado yung hinuhuli, hindi nahuhuli. Di ba? Ilang beses tayo na naghahanap ng mga PNP, yung mga nagkunong araw, sorry I have to say that, kita lang wala nahuli, si Greg lang ang nahuli, tapos takatakas pa, kung nasaan. Kayanes, nahuli rin, hinuli rin siya sa loob ng Senado. So, ibig sabihin, ika nga yung sinasabi ko pa nung araw, yung pagkakabaro may kaso, nahihirapan hulihin yung mga PNP. Meron pa ako nabasa kahapon, sabi, nahirap namin huli yan dahil dati namin hepe yan ng PNP. Wrong! Ang loyalty ninyo sa konstitusyon at saka sa tao, hindi doon sa hepe ninyo.
Senator, should the GSIS have notified the Senate about the activities they were doing, yung pag-drill nung pinto, yung pagkakaroon ng NBI agents supposedly to check the safety and security of the building? Kasi parang nangyayari po dito, there was a case of misunderstanding between the OSAA and NBI agents. Kasi akala rin po ni Senate Sergeant at Arms Aplaska na may intruder doon sa Senate building.
But you're in a Senate building, nagpuputok ka, 37 shots. Naputok ko, nag-discharge ka ng firearm. And so what? Even if they knew that there was one, hindi ba pwedeng naglagay siya ng gwardiya ron? Tungkulin niya. Dapat may gwardiya. Kung alam niya may passageway doon, dapat may gwardiya. Doon sa fire exit, dapat may gwardiya. Dapat doon po lang guard doon sa basement. Ba't hindi ginawa yun? Ibig sabihin talagang nagmamaang ngayon na hindi lang nakita, nakalusot sa kanila, hindi, dapat managot. Dapat managot siya mga yan.
Last question, Senator. Sa Lunes na po, dapat, magko-convene ng Senado bilang impeachment court. Ano po yung dapat nating abangan? Ano po yung inaabangan nyo na posibleng magyari? Because as for now, the whole majority is saying na hindi, itutuloy natin. There's been no talk na mauunsyami itong impeachment court convening. Do you believe that? And what are you going to be watching out for?
I always believe in our country, na dapat, pag mayroon tayong sistema ganyan, dapat pailalim. Ang pinaka-importante dito ay ang taong bayan. Ang tunay na maghuhusga dito, manipulate nila yan, lokohin nila, mahuhuli at mahuhuli yan. Tandaan nyo, in 1986, nag-eleksyon tayo, minanipulate nila at pinilit nilang gawin ng mga COMELEC volunteers na ayusin yung eleksyon. Ano nangyari? Nag-alsabalutan yung mga yun at nagkaroon tayo ng 1986 EDSA. Yun ang naging misa. Pangalawa, eto kay Erap, nung yun nalabuksan yung envelope at medyo may sumasayo pang senador ng panahon na yun, nakalimutan ko niya, nagalit ang tao. You cannot tempt the people so much. Ang may pasensya ang tao at pag nagalit ang tao, mag-aalsa yan. At pag nag-aalsa yan, it's no longer just people power. It's already almost revolutionary na ang gagawin niya mga yan. Dahil dalawang beses na yan na palagi tayong niloloko ng mga leader natin. So it's really, ang ina-expect ko? Ang ina-expect ko kung matuloy ito, ituloy yung pagpresenta ng ebidensya. At makikita ng mga tao, sino may agenda? Yung bang mga tinatanong nyo para makakabuti ba sa agenda ng mga Duterte? Pinalalabas nyo ba yung mga ebidensya dapat lumabas? Katulad ng mga pera na nagkakawala at katulad yung connection ng pera doon sa Parmali, meron pang connection yan doon. So, ibig sabihin, ang maganda dyan, lalabas at lalabas yan. Ngayon, kung hindi nila huhusgahan yan, dahil maraming ebidensya presenta, pumasok na sa isipan ng mga mamamayan na nakikita nila na maraming kalokohan, maraming katibayan, kung sakasakali man ganon, ay mahirap mo nang bawiin yan. Pagka hindi mo tinuloy yan, talagang magagalit ang tao. Ayoko sabihin yan Sino ba ako para sabihin ka na magagalit ang tao? Pero I know this for a fact na there is a hangganan. At yung nangyari kagabi, for example, parang ginawa ni Hitler yun. Alam na rin ng tao. Si Hitler sinunog yung Reichstag. At pagkatapos sinunog niya yung Reichstag, he took over the government, started arresting people. Ganyan rin nangyari kagabi. Parang para hindi matuloy itong impeachment, para magulo, para magkaroon tayo ng destabilization. Ganyan ang ginawa nila para naku-confuse ang tao. Pero sasabihin ko lang sa inyo, pag ang tao nakinig dyan at nakita nila, hindi mo pwedeng lokohin. Sabi nga ni President Lincoln, you can fool some of the people all the time, or you can fool all the people some of the time, but you cannot fool the people all of the time.
All right, we thank you for sharing your insights with us, former Senator Dick Gordon.
We're going to take a quick break, but coming up, was last night's shooting at the Senate a case of misunderstanding and mistaken motive? We show you actual footage of the encounter between the NBI and Senate security personnel when the big story returns. Keep it here.
The Big Story is back with more stories coming out of last night's chaos at the Senate. We begin with the statements from the Office of the Solicitor General and the Armed Forces. The OSG will file its comment on the urgent petition filed by Senator Bato de la Rosa. The lawmaker is seeking to invalidate the ICC arrest warrant issued against him. The Supreme Court did within 72 hours. The senator's camp will in turn have 72 hours to comment on the state's reply.
Meantime, AFP Chief of Staff General Romeo Browner Jr. tells soldiers to be calm, disciplined, and professional. This was his response when asked about Wednesday's shooting at the Senate, as well as persistent rumors of destabilization against the Marcos administration. Browner said the military should just focus on their jobs and leave politics to politicians.
And like the Armed Forces Chief, President Bongbong Marcos also asked for calm after last night's happenings at the Senate. In a message Wednesday evening, the chief executive also denied government involvement in the incident. He also promised a full investigation on the matter.
Alamin natin kung sino ang gumawa nitong gulo na ito. Ito ba ay talagang nagka-enkwentro lang, o ito ba ay may kasama sa mga distab o nagsusimula ng gulo? Kailangan po natin malaman yan. Kaya mag-iimbestiga sabay ang Senado at saka ang PNP tungkol dito. Masasabi ko lang, at para hindi po mag-alala ang taong bayan, hindi po gobyerno ang gumawa nito. Walang pumasok na tigalabas na sundalo, na militar, na NBI sa Senado. Wala pong instruction kahit na kanino na hulihin si Senator Bato. Nung lumabas yung resolution ng Supreme Court, ay sinabi ko, umalis na kayo dyan. Nag-comply naman sila. Kaya nung kausap ko si Director Matibag, sabi niya walang NBI doon, nandito lahat kami sa opisina. At ayun po, ay dahil kong mapaalam na sa lahat ng ating mga kababayan, itong pangyayari na ito, ay tayo maging kalma lang po. Nakausap ko na si Senate President Alan Cayetano at nag-agree kami. We agree that the thing to do now is to tell our people all to calm down, and we will get to the bottom of this.
Meantime, Vice President Sara Duterte also had something to say about last night's chaos. She is currently in The Hague visiting her ICC-detained father, former President Rodrigo Duterte.
Nalulungkot at nakakagalit yung nangyari yung nangyayari sa ating bayan ngayon. Lalong-lalo na doon sa pagpapakita ng disrespect sa institusyon ng Senado.
We're learning more about the brief but intense face-off between NBI agents and Senate security personnel last night. Both were in a building shared by the upper chamber and the GSIS. And it looks like the parties were caught by surprise by each other's presence. The details from News 5's Gio Robles.
Kasama natin yung mga ahente ng NBI.
Around 7:30 p.m. on Wednesday, May 14, NBI personnel entered this part of the ground floor of the GSIS building after hearing clanking and drilling sounds. NBI agents found these men boarding through a door, which we later found out to be a passageway to the Senate premises. As it turned out, these men were workers hired by the GSIS management. Then, multiple gunshots rang in the air. At this time, we were still in the GSIS building with NBI agents and workers. No idea at all where the noise was coming from. Eventually, it became clearer where the shots emanated.
Ayan. Ayan. Base po sa mga ahente natin sa NBI, galing po sa ground floor ng Senate itong sunod-sunod na putok ng barel na naririnig po natin.
Somehow, the NBI agents finally realized they were the targets, but they could not determine the source of the bullets. After a few more minutes passed, we caught sight of other NBI agents also deployed around the GSIS building. One of them said it was Senate Sergeant-at-Arms Mau Aplaska who fired the first shot. According to the agent, he and his companions were in the bridgeway in the second floor of the GSIS building. It was Aplaska who just emerged from a door from the Senate, suddenly opened fire and right at him. The embattled agent had no choice but to retaliate in self-defense. Fortunately, no one in the side of the building was hurt. For News 5, Gio Robles, we are One News.
Many were quick to speculate that last night's incident at the Senate was meant to facilitate Senator Bato de la Rosa's so-called, quote-unquote, escape. Former Senator Sonny Trillanes said yesterday's events seemed staged and highly suspicious.
Partito lahat, no? Everything was a ploy, everything was a ruse, at ultimately talagang patatakasin nila.
Progressive group Akbayan criticized the Senate leadership for allowing such an incident to unfold.
Their failure, either through sheer incompetence o posible ding by design, kaya nga may mga aligasyon na baka staged ito or diversionary tactics, yung failure po niya to ensure peace and order sa Senado created this chaos, allowing for a possible escape ni Bato de la Rosa. Hanggang ngayon, hindi pa natin alam nasaan siya.
For its part, the NBI says their investigation will try to answer whether the shooting incident and Senator Bato de la Rosa leaving the Senate building are related.
Well, I will be very honest. That's the sentiment of our NBI agents kasi nandoon kami. So isa na po sa aming tinitingnan yon. Kaya naman po, doon sa ibang mga katanungan tungkol doon, ang sinasabi ko lang, we will always defer to the judgment of the Department of Justice dahil sila po yung primerong ahensya na namumuno po rito.
Now, Senate President Alan Peter Cayetano has fiercely denied these theories and even took offense at such insinuations of a staged chaos.
Kung tututukan kita ng baril, papasukin ko bahay mo na may baril ako. Nag-warning shot ka, pinutukan kita pabalik. Is it not an attack? Sorry but I don't think there's any question. The Senate is under attack. Was under attack. Napakagaling ko naman mag-orchestrate ng lahat na yan. Kaya kong papuntahin dito mga armadong grupo.
Meantime, minority senators are addressing their absence at the upper chamber during last night's gunfire. Senator Risa Ontiveros' answer was plain and simple. Session already ended, so everybody already went home. She appealed via Facebook Live to majority senators to own up to what happened.
Ang sakit marinig yun, di ba? Na laughing stock tayo, ang sakit marinig na yung isa pang how can we regain our integrity, my God. Ayun ang pinaka-currency ng institusyon tulad ng Senado. But we just have to face it. That is our painful but necessary task right now. And primarily responsible ang leadership manguna dyan.
Senator Kiko Pangilinan meanwhile insisted rumors that they were warned of a possible chaotic situation were not true. He personally left early because he had a meeting to attend to. For his part, Senator Win Gatchalian called authorities to immediately identify who orchestrated the shootout and all others involved and bring them to justice. He adds, quote, such an act of violence committed within the premises of one of the country's highest democratic institutions is an utter disrespect and deliberate attack on the rule of law and our democracy. Despite everything that transpired, Senate President Alan Peter Cayetano said there is no reason to delay the impeachment trial against Vice President Sara Duterte. That's especially since the articles of impeachment are already in their possession. He estimates Monday, May 18 as the earliest possible date the Senate can convene as an impeachment court.
So walang magiging delays. I can tell you anything now as you asked, di ba, kailan yung trial. So if I have the trial July, August, then dinelay ko.
Offhand lang,
Diba? There's no reason whatsoever to dilly-dally. But so far, yung aming 13, ang sinasabi, there's no reason why not to convene and take our oaths on Monday.
Cayetano also said there is an alleged coup plot against him just days into his return as Senate President.
Expected naman yun. May invitations to talk, may pananakot, but dati na silang takot eh. You're always solid until you're not.
In other news, the peso hit another record low with one analyst pointing the finger at yesterday's chaos in the Senate. The local unit has weakened by 26 centavos to settle at 61.64 to the dollar. It surpasses the record set on April 29 when the peso closed at 61.567 against a greenback. Jafet Tantiangco, research manager at PhilStocks Financial, attributes the weaker peso to hawkish expectations on the Federal Reserve. But he also cites a drop to dented investor confidence following the shooting at the Senate. It's on top of an economy already facing stagflationary risks, or a combination of slower growth and higher inflation.
And we are pausing for another quick breather, but right after
Welcome back to the Big Story. More and more companies are embedding sustainable development into their business operations. 97% of local companies already have sustainability targets, according to last year's annual Green Impact Gap survey by Schneider Electric. From this figure, though, just 51% have implemented comprehensive strategies. Still, 52% of business leaders view sustainability as a driver for new opportunities, and nearly half also agree that sustainability strengthens reputation. Sustainability is becoming more important in a country facing the wrath of climate change. More than ever, it is important for future business leaders to learn navigating today's challenges in the classroom. It's time to put the spotlight on initiatives that move communities forward. Welcome to Sustainability. And joining us via Zoom is Alicia Rita Morales. She teaches Accelerating Sustainability in Corporations at the UP Diliman Cesar E.A. Verata School of Business. She's also Managing Director of John Clements Leadership Institute. Welcome, Alicia, or should I say Aleli?
Good evening, Ces, and good evening, ladies. Thank you for having me.
Aleli, your course is the first of its kind to be offered at the UP Business School. Why did you choose to do this, and what's your mission?
Well, thank you for asking. It really was because in one of the corporate requirements for directors are directors' learnings every year through the SEC. And that is where I learned that the Philippines is #1 impacted in the world based on the World Risk Report in 2022. And as you know, I actually couldn't sleep for weeks on what will be happening to our generation. And I solved it by trying to understand and learn. So I took a course in Oxford University. That was basically hybrid. And then I went also to INSEAD because most of the European companies are more or less advanced in that stage. And as I learned, I was having a conversation with the dean then at the Verata School of Business, inviting me to teach. So I said, what do you want to teach? I said, name it, because I actually run an executive education learning institute. And I said, strategy, innovation. And then I said, sustainability. And it's like, oh, wow, we don't have sustainability. And I said, well, I've really been studying that because I one day I would like to teach the children, the new generation, especially the Gen Z, because I think we're already in our last decade. I mean, in my last years, last phase, and the only way to
too early for you to
be
say
able
that.
to do that, impart knowledge and let them and inspire them. So then I sleep better, and I guess, and you also had the project when we were in towns, and so I did sign up, and I thought with that, reaching out to the LGUs and bridging scientists for your project is really amazing. So it is actually there that I learned more about the climate change issues in the Philippines.
Incidentally, we're colleagues in towns.
Oh.
Yes. And
Yeah.
Why am I not surprised?
tell us, for you, which is the best business case study on sustainability among Philippine corporations? We know that you are an independent director at the EDC, so maybe you should count them out.
Well, essentially, we use the Harvard Business Publishing materials, and there are some case studies there from the Philippines. And basically, I looked at the global best practices, best cases, more relevant to the Philippines. So I started with 65, narrowed it down to 30, and then I said I could teach 16. So we ended up with Filipino companies. There are two Filipino companies that are my favorite. Lionheart. Lionheart Farm. Yes, and the Tree of Life. Yes. Actually, I researched that. It was the bestseller in Europe, and it was written in an institution. I think IMD in Switzerland. So that one.
And the other one is?
And then And the other one is Manila Water Company.
Why?
Yes.
What are they doing that's good?
Okay, for Lionheart, it was really a shock to me that it was from the Philippines. And first, it's agricultural based, and they are getting higher yields. And they started out by actually looking at the stakeholders. So that's basically a change in mindset. When you start a company, of course, you need to make money and you need to be sustainable in your income. And usually sustainability is expensive. But actually, if you are able to sustain the business using the right methods that are sustainable environmentally, socially, and with proper governance, then eventually you would have a longer life. Because we all know that if we're not sustainable in the environment, eventually we're affecting, we have all of these negative externalities. We are going to be affecting the earth, and it will strike back. So stakeholder management means not only taking care of your shareholders and your employees, but beyond that would really be the community, the government, etc. So for Lionheart, can you imagine they didn't have land and they partnered with the DNR to be able to collaborate with the indigenous communities that own the farm. So they have a huge tract.
This is the one in
and
Rizal, Palawan. We've had them on the show.
Yes. And you can see, we don't have the latest, but a few years back, the poverty incidence has really improved. And how can that happen? You know, sometimes it's always like, oh, you know, for agriculture, one rain, sometimes one big typhoon, it closes. Yeah. But here, they've been able to make, you know, indigenous people, they have they're treated very much as part of their company already, because they're the ones that really run the company. In a sense, they're very much empowered. They grow. They also have desk jobs, and so they're actually, some of them are in SUVs, motorcycles already. So they have really the population in Rizal has actually improved. The GDP there and the employment basically is really contributed by the Lionheart Corporation.
Yeah, and their products are truly world-class. We were able to taste some of their teriyaki sauces. And
I actually met
syrups.
them in the glass of Aleli.
But I would like to ask, since your target is, of course, the younger generation, the next generation of business leaders, and also you mentioned that there is this stigma or perception that sustainability is actually expensive. How would you dispel that stereotype?
Through basically learning about what's happening in the world, and in terms of in terms of the actually the definition of sustainability, you can think of it like a vineyard where the vine grows and the grapes are your income, and the roots and the branches are your are the stable capital. So if you basically hurt the environment, if you hurt that, you won't have grapes growing. And you want to have that grapes growing forever. So in essence, it's basically regeneration. So we basically started out by looking at, there was one exercise and that we looked at all the best cities in the world. And then after that, we said, like, you know, Amsterdam, Vancouver, etc. And they were saying, how does it feel like? And they said, it feels like heaven. If I were there, it feels like heaven. There's no pollution. There's very little carbon emissions. So they bike to work, because it's become very, they made it really very expensive to have a car. So then if you're able to run the business that way, then it will generate income. Another one is actually Natura from Brazil, and that's basically why I also wanted to go to COP30 last November, is to drop by Sao Paulo to check their head office.
Oh, you were able to go.
Yeah, I did there. So if you look at the company, it's in the middle of the forest. It's so sustainable, and then they're very diversified. They have a huge hub inside a logistic hub. They even have PWDs there, and they serve. They actually use the ingredients from the Amazon rainforest. We also have a rainforest, so it's tropical. So why can't we do that? And they work with 11,000 families. Many of our conglomerates actually have been able to work with with many of the communities. So they basically deal with the communities by supporting them through their foundations. That's what I noticed, how their relationships become successful by nurturing the communities that they are in.
You're speaking to us like a professor talaga. Very loud and clear. But one last question and a quick answer. How are you seeing the younger generation, your students, respond to the case studies and to the subject matter of sustainability? Quickly lang, Alicia, kasi...
Okay, I'm so surprised.
And do they
Very
also
engaged.
do they have any interesting pitches, ideas on how to incorporate sustainability? 'Cause
From
they're
the
very
youngest
creative.
in the group. Young enough to be your
Wow,
student.
they're really so engaged. They already have some exposure before they came in, and one of them is part of a group that devised some materials to cool the room, and they were sent to Geneva. They were the only ones from the Philippines. So, there's a lot of material. Even you saw that board game. Their scores were very high. In fact, the simulation that I had last year, they did it ahead of time, when in fact the guide said sometimes you can actually extend that if they cannot come to an agreement, but they did. So I have a lot of faith. That's our new generation is our silver lining, and given the percentage of the Gen Z and the Gen Y in our population, it's very encouraging. So if they don't buy it, like the consumer, they're very picky with the things they buy and their emissions and waste. So that's really something that we really have to think about as companies. If you want to be we really need to be sustainable to address them.
You know what Aleli does in her class is she makes each student compute their carbon emission. There's some kind of, formula. Then you realize how much you're contributing. And I have to say, Alicia, since you started this class, you're looking younger.
Wow.
So that you're inspired. So we thank you for your time. That was Alicia Rita Morales of UP Diliman. Thank you.
Finally, some good news.
Yeah.
For the first time this week.
One of her students is part of a group that makes roofing materials out of bamboo and other things. Yeah. And she's the one she was referring to. That
the
group.
cooling material.
Yeah. That was invited to compete in Geneva. Hindi nanalo, pero they're still inspired to continue.
Yeah, but they got picked, so that's win enough.
Actually.
Especially since red alert, yellow alert tayo non-stop.
Ngayon walang kuryente, no?
Or additional brownout actually, natabunan lang ng event sa Senado.
Well, I wish that elective was already available when we were still studying.
Baka ikaw lang yung umabot.
All right, but on that note, that's it for the big story this Thursday. Thank you so much for watching.
We're back here tomorrow at 8 p.m. We'll see you then.
Kapatid, we are One News, all sides, all the time. Have a good night.